It had been more than 10 years since our last visit to Middleham, the small market town of Wensleydale, best known to the racing fraternity and Ricardians. The street scene hadn't altered much during the intervening years, but we were in store for some innovations at the castle. Our first encounter was with the statue. I found this modern interpretation of Richard III hideous, insulting and a little scary. The leaflet handed to us explains the creatures crawling up Richard's back as a medieval demon and the basilisk, or cockatrice, a mythical creature of ill repute, though the sculptor has given him his own white boar as a footrest. Leaving the statue, we begin our tour of the castle ruins, and I like the use of artistic impressions of the gutted rooms, something of a trademark at many English heritage properties. The wooden staircase on the site of the original stone stairway took us up to the main entrance of the keep, past the crumbling guardhouse at the halfway mark. Initially, 3 gates guarded this approach. From the wooden viewing platform, the visitor can better appreciate the scale and grandeur of what once was. Like most visitors to Middleham, I made this pilgrimage out of respect for the man who spent most of his life here. Richard of Gloucester arrived here as a 9-year-old boy to undertake the rigorous training required to become a knight. All sons of the nobility had to learn how to wield weapons, and, as some modern children discovered, it wasn't always easy.
Left shoulder, right shoulder, left leg, right leg, head. Left leg, right leg. Right shoulder, left shoulder, right leg, right leg. Shout!
Archaeology helps to paint a better picture of what the castle might have consisted of. Then there are the relics unearthed over the years, none more spectacular than the lozenge-shaped pendant found in a field in 1985. A typical 15th century reliquary, especially commissioned by its wearer and much worn as a talisman to secure good health, it gives an insight into the beliefs of the period. The gold ring is probably of 14th century origin and may have links to earlier noble owners of Middleham, whereas a small plaque bearing the initials R and A is certainly connected to either Richard III and his wife Anne or her parents of the same names. But the copper alloy boar badge is definitely of Richard's era and probably belonged to one of his retainers, and was one of a number struck to commemorate the investiture of his son as Prince of Wales. Called the Swine Cross, this curious, weather-worn stone is arguably here to mark the pig market or another tribute to Richard for his patronage of the half-annual fairs he inaugurated. Parish churches often survive much of history's bludgeoning, and this one is no exception. Dedicated to Saints Mary and Alcelda, the latter said to have been a Saxon princess, it earned the distinction of collegiate status through the auspices of Richard himself. That is to say, it allowed Mass to be said for his relatives in perpetuity. The Reformation didn't erase this constitution, except that Richard's soul no longer benefited. Set in the south wall is a 1934 stained glass window honouring Richard and his family in its lower panels. Above them are St. Richard of Winchester and St. Mary being taught to read by her mother, St. Anne. Middleham is a bustling town filled with friendly folk, including the castle's custodian. She told us that the statue was harmless to alleviate vandalism. However, the morning after its erection, she arrived to discover it had been knocked off its plinth. Who else agreed with me that this is a monstrosity? Could it have been a comment from beyond the grave?